Hey everybody, Bonehead for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Dungeon Bowl Starting Rosters College of Shadows, the 2024 Gnome release update. So, we've covered every team in Dungeon Bowl, each of the 8 colleges of magic. We did that when the game released. Since then, there have been a few more teams that have come out and have added pretty important players to some of those rosters. So we are now going back and having a look and doing some updated versions of those rosters. And today we are going to look at the College of Shadows and the fact that they got some pretty awesome toolkit in the way of gnomes. Okay, so gnomes adding to the College of Shadows. Fantastic. Say fantastic. The thing College of Shadows really wants is Goblin secret weapons. But if we can't get those, what we can get is some pretty useful role players in the way of the gnome roster. So you can now add to your College of Shadows these players here. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk through what these players bring to the College of Shadows. And we're going to have a look at some of the rosters from the starting rosters video for College of Shadows and see what we would change, what we would tweak. So that original video, hello fly, completely useful, completely accurate. This one kind of adds to it and says, but you can take that and you can tweak and add some beneficial things here. For example, how would you like a goblin with worse armor, worse movement, no dodge, but has wrestle and jump up? It's a very interesting thing. So the gnome lineman joins the College of Shadows as one of your linemen. So there's no restriction really on the amount of you can take. And what that player gives you, and the same is true for the Illusionists and the Beastmasters here, is a player that does have stunty, does have Edge 3+, but comes with wrestle. Now, Dungeon Bowl. If you've played Dungeon Bowl or you've watched it on the channel, dude, it is corridors. It's all about corridors, and you will get situations where a stunty player is really, really useful. That is why goblins are so effective on the College of Shadows. You only need a couple of them because actually that 3++, 3++ is fantastic. What gnomes gives you is the 3+ anywhere. You have to use your team rerolls to pull it off, but you ignore the tackle zones, and then you get wrestle. So what you're kind of doing by taking a lone lineman is you're accepting they're a little bit slower, you're accepting they're a lot squishier, but you get that opportunity to probably take a 3+ into any situation and have a 2-die up block with wrestle. And being able to get in there and taking wrestle is fantastic. And if you're doing Dungeon Bowl in kind of match play format, so you get some skills. One skill will give you dodge on one of these players. If you wanted to put wrestle on a goblin, it would probably be a double skill, it would be a secondary skill, which means you actually have a bit more to spend. So what you can do really is you get to use those gnomes to just kind of fudge in a pretty effective ball sacker into your roster without having to pay premium skill cost. That's very useful. And at 40k, they're very cheap and very easy to fit into the roster, because there's a couple of other pieces here that change up what you can do. And the biggest and best one is the Fox. So, College of Shadows is primarily Skaven, Dark Elves, right? You've got some Goblins and now you've got Gnomes, but primarily it's Dark Elves and Skaven. That is not a bad combination, because what does Skaven have? Gutter Runners. But Gutter Runners, even though they're movement 9, Edge 2+, just absolute gods on the Blood Bowl pitch, they get stuck in corridors as well. They don't have stunty, so tackle zones actually do slow Gutter Runners down. Now, if a Gutter Runner can break out, you've got that sweet Edge 2+ to just get out and run away. Fantastic. But the thing that Gnomes now brings to this roster is Woodland Foxes. And if you are running 4 Gutter Runners in your College of Shadows team, I think it's worth dropping 1 or 2 of them and replacing them with foxes. There's a couple of benefits here, and we'll see this more as we look through some of the rosters. You save, 35k on a gutter runner, on a fox versus a gutter runner. Your gnomes and your goblins are 40k, so you were probably going to be able to find that extra 5k. So if you drop 2 gutters, bring 2 foxes instead, you're saving 70k. Which is the best part of 2 more players. Which, all right, fine. You could say, well, okay, Ben, I won't take Gutter Runners and I save 85k. Yes. But the point is, what you get from the Foxes is a different but equally fast player. Movement 9 is more than Movement 7, yes. But the Foxes with Edge 2+, Stunty and Dodge, they are just 7 squares of 2+ with a reroll to just fandangle their way into absolutely anywhere. Now, they will explode if you talk to them in a way that is too loud. They will literally just There you go. They've gone. The fox is gone. But what it does mean is in Dungeon Bowl, you've got probably a 2+ handoff to a fox. And then if you're within 7 to 9 squares of the end zone, all you have to do is just not roll 2 ones successively, and you've got a touchdown. And whether you're playing a standard standard Dungeon Bowl with 1 TD ends the game, or the 3-ball variant, a touchdown is a touchdown, and that's phenomenal. So the foxes are kind of, they pair really well with gutters. Gutters do the sweeping, they do the moving, but your fox will get you over the line in a Dungeon Bowl game beyond any other player. Let me put it this way. They're a strength 2, movement 7 snotling. Think about that. Because they actually do have sidestep as well. Oh, dude, that's wicked. Now, foxes cannot hand the ball off, so they are less effective for stretch plays. But you've got a couple of foxes in there, you have always got a 2+2+2+2+2+2+ touchdown. Sometimes that ain't bad. And because you drop 2 gutters, take 2 foxes, it comes with a goblin or a line rat or a dark elf lineman free, basically. You buy 2, you get 1 free. I said you buy 2, you get 1 free. Now, there are a couple of other positionals on the roster. The Illusionists are the tricksters. Those are the guys that when you declare a block, they bamf 2 squares. They're going to be fun in Dungeon Bowl. I don't think they are ubiquitous. If you've got some skills to put on players, then actually them with dodge is going to be brilliant in a dungeon. It allows you to restack the maths. The downside of it in the dungeon is that they don't have dodge, generally speaking. They do have stunty, so if they can get dodge, they become really, really, really good. But to use that ability, they need to get punched, and Dungeon Bowl tends to be a bit of a mosh pit, so I think it's quite a bad environment for an Illusionist. That said, there will be a game, if you do take an Illusionist, where they end up being phenomenal. They bamf to the other side and they can run away and do great things. There's always such a good upside when it comes to the Illusionist, but they are a bit soft. And then you've got the Beastmasters, and the Beastmasters are something you really got to consider on this roster, because they are halfling stats. They don't have dodge. They've got wrestle, jump up, but they come with guard. And that stunty 3+ ability means that you are going to be able to get them into the hole that you need them to be to make the most of that guard out of it. They are vulnerable. Their armor 8+, I think. 7+, 8+. 7+ is normal, 8+. So their armor 8+. They don't come with dodge, and they do come with wrestle. So they're not the softest of targets, but you're kind of one and done. Now, with those players in mind, each of them has their use. Linemen replace linemen, that's fine. Runners replace runners, so that's the Dark Elf runner, the Gutter runner, and the Fox are all vying for that 0 to 4 choice. 2 Gutters, 2 Foxes, chef's kiss, fantastic. The Foxes are really important. You can take 4 Foxes for 200k as well, which is really interesting. An all-gnome Dungeon Bowl team is actually really quite interesting. Then you've got the Illusionists, they're replacing throwers. My initial rosters had 2 Skaven throwers, because actually what you want to do is sweep with the throwers, and you want to have that cheeky 2++ passing 2+ quick pass with pass reroll to be able to farm the ball off to a gutter or a scoring threat the other side. With the Foxes on there as well, I don't think the 2 throwers is entirely necessary. And because you've now got good alternatives for a cheap amount, dropping one of your throwers, I think 85k, down to potentially 2 gnomes instead, or a goblin and a gnome, or if you've got a spare 5k, to a lineman and a gnome, it is probably better. 1 passer, 1 thrower, absolutely. If you're running match play, you can fudge in a reroll using leader, but quite frankly, just being able to bounce the ball off the walls and make those quick passes is really useful for the thrower. Good movement, sure hands is going to come in handy too, maybe just one of them. So the Illusionist is going up against the thrower in a way that I don't think is going to hurt you too much. If you can get 1 Illusionist in the roster and 1 thrower, I think you're good to go. The Beastmasters replacing Special, the only victim there are Witch Elves. Witch Elves are very expensive. Ironically, those 2 pair brilliantly together. Stunty Guard, Witch Elf, Frenzy, brilliant. You can take 1 of each, it's fantastic. And the way the College of Shadows is kind of built now, there's some really cool combos in there that work really well together. So, with that said, the brief of the gnome positionals for Dungeon Bowl, they're all going to be useful. Foxes, fantastic. Gnomes, cheap and brilliant. Beastmasters, if you can get them on there, wonderful bit of extra guard. And the Illusionists, when they pop, they will be brilliant. So let's have a look at some of the rosters. This is the starter set roster that we did, 11 players. If you've just picked up Dungeon Bowl, this is going to be what you've got. 2 Dark Elf linemen, 3 Skaven linemen, 1 Gutter runner, 1 runner for the Dark Elves, 1 Blitzer Dark Elf, 1 Skaven Blitzer, 1 Skaven thrower, 1 Dark Elf, Witch Elf, and 3 rerolls. That's the starting roster out of the box because you get 1 sprue of each. Dungeon Bowl's interesting, and it's weird because you can have some set plays, in particular the way you deploy and who you bring on later, but every game just evolves in such a way that having a Dark Elf lineman extra one game may be wonderful, but then having a Skaven lineman extra the next game, that extra movement might be useful. So I will say you want to take the players that you are the most comfortable playing with and the ones you want to enjoy the most, because it's going to be down to you to figure out how the situation plays out. You want to take the best players you've got and the ones you know how to play best, but don't stress too much about, oh, is it right to take 3 linemen, 3 Dark Elves or 2 Skaven? Do you know what? Play with what you've got, because no matter what you choose, you'll wish you'd taken the other way. So the starter set roster is that. Now let's have a look at some of the other ones, and we're adding in some gnomes. So the first one we're going to look at is the max speed roster here. So the way this was designed is max speed. Buried the lead on that one. Previously, this was 4 gutter runners and just the players with the best bit of movement. And what we've done is we've flexed some of that out. So this isn't technically max speed, but what this does is give you a very fast build and a very, very fast scoring threat. It's not quite Skinks in the College of Heavens, but it's very much up there. And Shadows basically has very little punch. It's got a bit more now you've got the Beastmasters, in fact, combo quite nicely with the Blitzers on this roster, but it's not a tenacity. Tenacious? It's not a resilient team. It's a quick scoring team. So this roster comes in 980-ish. 2 Skaven linemen, 2 Goblin linemen, and we flexed those positionals and added in an extra gnome there. We've got 2 gutter runners. We've replaced the other 2 with 2 woodland foxes. 2 Dark Elf blitzers, 1 Skaven thrower, and we've added in a gnome beastmaster and 3 rerolls. So what you're doing with this roster, you've got a thrower there to be your utilitarian, okay? Not a very good safety, but a really good way to pick up the ball, move it 7 squares and throw it 6 squares on a 3+ with a reroll to a bunch of effective scorers. Honestly, if you ignore the Beastmaster and the Gnome lineman, everybody here is a scoring threat. Skaven lineman, pretty resilient, reasonably strong. They are great all-rounders at movement 7. So when you have to drop them in later onto a teleporter, they are going to be able to maneuver quite a big amount of the dungeon. That's why they're so effective. Now you can flex them out and use Dark Elf linemen instead if you want slightly better armor and significantly better agility, but speed of redeployment with the Skaven lineman is going to be really useful. Those goblins are going to be key for this roster. Well, they would have been anyway. Now we've got woodland foxes. Look, movement 6, armor 8+, dodge, strength 2 is not great, but edge 3+ with dodge and stun T means that they are just 3++ dodging in anywhere. The beautiful thing here is you can bring on a goblin late and they will be able to run around, jump through other players and just get into really annoying positions. And when you've got a thrower, when you've got gutter runners, when you've got that little bit of movement agility, if you can drop a goblin the other side of your opponent's main defense, you're probably only going to be a 3++ dodge roll away from scoring, and that's fantastic on a lineman. Now we put 1 gnome lineman in there for the wrestle, the suicide blitz that we talked about. Movement 5 is trash in Dungeon Bowl. Armor 7+ is trash in Dungeon Bowl, and strength 2 is significantly not good in Dungeon Bowl. But wrestle jump up is very useful, and having a gnome lineman here to be a you know what? I'm going to bring him in, and he's going to have a shot at the ball carrier. I'm going to team rerolls to make those dodges to get them in there, and then I've got that bit of wrestle. I love a gnome on this roster. Slows the roster down, and technically I think a goblin might be better with a bit more speed and that dodge reroll, but wrestle is going to be really, really useful. And actually you pop in there, you take wrestle, you jump up, it keeps you going, it keeps the game flowing. Really, really, really effective. We've swapped 2 gutter runners out for 2 woodland foxes. They are slower, they are more vulnerable, but that movement 7 stunty edge 2+ dodge is just phenomenal. You get a fox a ball 7 to 9 squares away from the end zone, and the odds are significantly in your favor. So I do love having at least 2 foxes on this roster, and that money, the spare we were able to spend and get that Gnome Lineman to bring in. So that brings this roster up to 13 players. So you start your drops and then everybody else just comes on. You've got Skaven who are coming on later with movement 7. You've got Goblins with movement 6 and Stunty Dodge. You've got a really effective reserve coming on. Individually, very weak, but you'll get them where you want them to be. 2 Dark Elf Blitzers, 1 Thrower and 1 Gnome Beastmaster kind of rounds up this roster. The Dark Elf Blitzers are better than Skaven Blitzers. It hurts me to say this as a Skaven player, but they are. Look, armor's the same, movement is worse. No, it's not. Movement's the same, and your agility is just better. Straight up, Edge 2 Plus is fantastic in Dungeon Ball. And the cool thing here is you've got a Gnome Beastmaster as well. So you've got that Beastmaster to move in, to take that Stunty 3 Plus into where they need to go if they need to. That's going to help your Blitzer take a good hit. The only thing I might want to do in this roster is drop one of the Dark Elf Blitzers and take a Witch Elf instead. If you've got access to a few skills, you can give them block, and actually a Witch Elf pairs beautifully with that Gnome Beastmaster. You can get that free guard in and take a 4-die block is pretty fun with a Witch Elf. And the Thrower, Skaven Thrower, best thrower in the game. So this is kind of a really good example of how all the pieces of the Shadow roster work together, especially with gnomes to pad them out. So initial drop for this one, both Blitzers, the Thrower, the Beastmaster as well as kind of a combat contingent, and then either both the Skaven Linemen to run off and look for the ball at movement 7, or both the Gutters to really run off and look for the ball. And then you could potentially just bring on those Foxes later with their Edge 2 Plus. They are going to get targeted, but if your opponent is blitzing a Fox, they're leaving the rest of your team alone, and that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. But you can bring them on and they're going to quickly be able to get kind of just want a goal hang. You want to stick them that way and then just make yourself available to get a cheeky handoff to the Fox. Going to be very effective. I love Shadow because I am just unapologetically a Skaven fan, and Dark Elves aren't bad either. But now you get the fun, cool stuff of gnomes as well. Fantastic. And we'll quickly look at the other 2 rosters that were featured in the video, the Dark Elf Heavy roster and the Skaven Heavy roster, to just see what you can flex in and out to add if you've got a box of gnomes to make it a little bit better. So Dark Elf Heavy, this roster was 3 Dark Elf Linemen, 2 Skaven Linemen, 2 Gutter Runners because you need Gutter Runners and Shadows, 2 Dark Elf Blitzers, 2 Dark Elf Witch Elves. Oh, that's wicked, isn't it? That is really nice. 11 players. Okay, so some of the things you can do here is flex out the Dark Elf Blitzers, or 1 Blitzer, bring in a Beastmaster and potentially a Goblin or a Gnome Lineman to give you more players and that stunty element. The key being bringing on at least 1 Beastmaster combos so well with your Witch Elves. Use it as your kind of core combat contingent. That Gnome is going to be able to take 3+ stunty into the right place, and your Witch Elf will be able to take a 4-die frenzy hit, potentially, if you can pull that guard off. Guard is really important in Shadows if the game stalls out a bit. You want to turbo this roster as much as possible, but having a Beastmaster there to be able to chuck on and allow your Witch Elf to just take 2 solid hits at a target, that's going to bust open the corridor that you need to break through with, I don't know, maybe a Fox, maybe some Gutter Runners, somebody who's going to be able to run down and win the game. So that's a good flex there. Taking some Foxes here, you can drop a Gutter Runner and take a Woodland Fox, and you can probably flex a little bit of the cash. In fact, maybe even drop one of the Dark Elf Linemen, take a Skaven Lineman instead. That will give you the spare cash to be able to drop one of the Gutters and take 2 Woodland Foxes. That's 1 more player, and that's 1 more scoring threat as well. And you've got the option to drop a Skaven Lineman or a Dark Elf Lineman and take a Gnome Lineman. I'm less fussed about having the Gnome Lineman here than I am the rest. I think the best way to change this roster, drop a Dark Elf Blitzer, take a Beastmaster, drop a Dark Elf Lineman, yeah, maybe drop a Gutter Runner and take 2 Woodland Foxes. You might be able to just add the Woodland Foxes in if you're playing with that cash. Actually, yeah, you will. You drop the Blitzer, you drop a Dark Elf Lineman, you bring a Skaven Lineman instead. You've got enough cash left over to bring a Woodland Fox for free. Yeah, a ton of stuff you can do. You could even boost up your rerolls. The key here is if you're going Dark Elf heavy, you can add a couple of bits from the Gnome roster to really make it pop. Your Woodland Foxes and 1 Beastmaster is pretty much all you need. And then Skaven core roster, 4 Skaven Linemen, 2 Skaven Throwers, 2 Skaven Gutter Runners, 2 Dark Elf Blitzers because they are arguably better, a Dark Elf Witch and 3 rerolls. It's a pretty good roster. 11 players comes in at about 1,000. Right, this is where you want to do everything we've talked about already. You can drop a Skaven lineman and take another woodland fox. You can drop a Skaven thrower and take 2 gnomes instead. An illusionist there if you drop a blitzer. Everything we just talked about. You start with this Skaven core and then you season to taste. I do like this roster dropping one of the 2 throwers. That's 85k. That's going to get you 2 stunty linemen or a woodland fox. And then if you play a little bit with some of the... In fact, I think if you drop a gutter runner and a thrower, you can take 2 woodland foxes and a gnome or a goblin. And that's a big boon. If you drop one of the blitzers, you take the illusionist to be your extra bit of strength there. And you can combo with a witch elf. I feel like this is less exciting, which is ironic given that it's Skaven than some of the other rosters, but if you're starting with the Skaven core, that's kind of where you want to be. But honestly, I think this roster is just a ton of fun. The max speed one, added to by those gnome pieces. Look at it. 3 rerolls, 13 players. You've got a stunty wrestle times 2. You've got 4 egregious scoring threats, 2 of them being gutter runners and 2 of them being those Edge 2++ comets with the foxes. You've got 2 dark elf blitzers there as well. You've got the best thrower in the game. This is a really exciting roster because you're adding extra stunty, because you're adding those woodland foxes. It does make up for one of the things, the biggest thing that Shadows is just victimized against, which is anybody who can block. Any strength 4 or 5 piece is a problem. Bit of guard is going to help you with that, but mostly you're just going to be Edge 2+ dodging in there. This roster will have the most quick wins of any format, I think. This is you can play 10 games of Dungeon Ball, College of Shadow and College of Heavens in an hour, basically, is how I'm seeing that. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Let me know what you think to these rosters. Let me know what you think to gnomes being added to the College of Shadows. Because I am going to go add some to mine. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.